Okay, ready for some more? Our next word element, well, actually, before I jump into that, let's do a quick review. So we just covered the idea of prefixes and suffixes, and we know that these are word parts or word elements that we're going to use to modify words. Now we're going to move on to word root. So we're getting closer to what we can use as a functional format for building words, but we're not quite there yet. A word root is our third element we're going to discuss. It's the main part or foundation of the word. We see thorax here, and it means chest. Gaster means stomach, and cyst means bladder. All medical words have at least one word root, and for right now, that is an absolute rule. You will find out later we're going to change that rule, but for right now, that's an absolute rule. All medical terms have at least one word root, and it usually indicates a body part or organ. So if you want to think about it, the word root is really the noun. It's what we're talking about. Word roots are something we need in med-term, but they're dysfunctional units. They're, in and of themselves, they can't really do the job we need to get done, but they are very integral to getting the job done. So when we talk about word roots, we need to add some other things to them to make them functional. But before we get to that, let's just take a look at some medical terms. Once again, they're broken up with hyphens so you can see the word elements. But what we're focusing on is the word root here. So when we look at the word appendectomy, you may be familiar with this, the removal of the appendix, pardon me, during an appendicitis, which is the disease state. Append is our word root in the term appendectomy. If we look at the term abdominal, our word root is abdomen. Dentist, word root is dent. Pancreatitis, our word root is pancreat. In cardiac, our word root is cardi. Now, I just said these are dysfunctional word parts, yet here we are using them in words and they're functioning just fine. So it's a little tricky in how word roots are actually, how they become functional units and how they become the part of the word. And I'm going to break that down for you right now. We're going to start breaking that down by talking about the combining vowel. A combining vowel is a vowel that's added to a word root. It's usually the letter O, and I would say 99.961478% of the time, it's an O. Of course, I'm exaggerating with that percentage here, but if you ever have to guess at what a combining vowel is and you don't know, if you pick O, you're very, very likely to nail it right on the head. So a combining vowel is typically an O, not always, and it makes the word easier to pronounce. And so, just as a quick reminder, once again, some basic English. Vowels are A, E, I, O, U. All other letters are called consonants. You're probably aware of that. In terminology, you will see O used as a combining vowel. You will see I used as a combining vowel. If anyone finds any medical terms that start with A, E, or U, let me know. I would love to see it. I've never seen those combining vowels used in terminology. I've taught this class for 8 years, and I use terminology a lot. I've never seen it. If you find one, please let me know. I'd love to see it. Really, the only two combining vowels you're going to encounter in this class are going to be O and I. So, going back to the words, you can see now at the front of the word, we have some word roots, which are dysfunctional units, and then we see a suffix at the end. And in the middle, you see, oh, there is an E combining vowels. So there we go. I got caught on that one right away. So E is also occasionally used. So if we look at the word gastrotomy, which would be a new opening forming in the stomach, the combining vowel here is an O. Here's the one that caught me off guard, choledithiasis. The combining vowel here is an E. That's a very rare one, but there it is for you. Laparoscopy, the combining vowel here is O. Pelvi, the combining vowel is an I. And can a word have more than one combining vowel? Indeed it can. So the bottom one, we have electrocardiogram, and it has two combining vowels, O and O. So we're going to take this word root that we talked about earlier. We're going to take the combining vowel that we just learned about right now, and we're going to put those together. And here is our functional form that we can use to build words with. It's called the combining form. A combining form is always comprised of a word root plus a combining vowel. Perfect example. I showed you earlier, you saw two forms of, let me preface this by saying you saw two forms of the word stomach earlier. You saw gaster, and I showed you that, and I showed you the word gastro that had a slash and an O. What I was really showing you then was the combining form for stomach. So here we take gaster, we add the combining vowel O, and we have gastro, and this is our combining form. The vowel used in the combining form, once again, is called the combining vowel. Now this is our functional unit we can use to actually build words with. We start with the combining form, and then we figure out what it is we need to do with that combining form. So before we move further, let's look at some combining forms. We'll go back to that same set of words. So we have gastrotomy. The combining form here is gastro. Cholelithiasis, the combining vowel is chole. And laparoscopy, the combining form is lapro. Pelvimeter, the combining form is pelvi. An electrocardiogram has two combining forms, electro and cardio. Now, each of these, of course, has its own suffix, as you can see as well. We're not talking about suffixes quite yet, but we are going to get to those. And if I didn't mention it earlier, 100% of your words are going to have suffixes. So they're going to be very important for you to learn up front. For right now, though, we're going to work with combining forms. So the combining form is the functional unit. It's the functional noun that you're going to use to build words with. And you're going to see how that happens as this unfolds further. Now we're going to jump in to the 3 rules of word building. And what these are essentially about, they're about, do I use a combining vowel to connect a suffix, or do I not use a combining vowel to connect a suffix? The combining form will always present with that combining vowel. Your decision is, do I need to use it to make the word? Going back to my Lego analogy, the combining vowels can sometimes be like that extra Lego part you get at the end of the kit. You follow the instructions, you put everything exactly the way it should be, or you put the puzzle together and everything fits and all the pieces are there, but you still have a piece or two left over. It's kind of like that with combining vowels. Sometimes we need them, and sometimes we don't. Either way, we always want to acknowledge their presence, and then we determine whether we need them. So, here's our word building rule number 1. I'm going to read the definition at the top, and then I'm going to use the blue box at the bottom to describe what it really means. A word root links to a suffix that begins with a vowel. This isn't a useful way to describe this in my personal opinion. But let's look at the words here. Once again, we have them broken up with hyphens so you can see the sections. Thorax is a word root, and it connects to the word algia. And together that makes the word thorasalgia, which means chest pain. Gaster connects to itis, which makes a term called gastritis, which is inflammation of the stomach. And the word cyst, which means bladder, typically the urinary bladder, but it could be any bladder in your body. And if we add the suffix ectomy, it makes the word cystectomy, so it would be the removal of a bladder. Now this blue box at the bottom really describes it more usefully. If a suffix begins with a vowel, A, E, I, O, U, no combining vowel is needed. In other words, if the suffix that you're going to attach to your combining form has brought its own vowel to the party, you throw away that combining vowel and you just simply attach the suffix onto the word root, and that's how you're going to make words with suffixes that begin with a vowel. Once again, I just want to reiterate, if you're confused by this, that's perfectly fine. It means you're building new neural pathways to understanding. As we go, trust me, as we go, you will get this and it will make sense. And before long, you'll be building words using all of these parts. Our word building rule number 2, and this one actually is, I think, where we should have started with this, but they have it backwards here. They start with the word root first. But this is really the way things are going to work in our class. Word building rule number 2. A combining form links to a suffix that begins with a consonant. So you see here some combining forms. Same 3 words as before. Now we're showing you the combining vowel that normally appears with that word root in the form of a combining form. And we have 3 suffixes, and you'll notice all 3 suffixes start with a consonant, which means that we're going to keep that combining vowel. As example, thoracodynia, gastromegaly, cystology. Now let's imagine we built these words using word building rule number 1, saying that we didn't need the combining vowel. Thoracodynia, gastromegaly, cystology wouldn't work. You can't pronounce them. Because the suffix starts with a consonant, it makes the word harder to pronounce without a vowel preceding it. Therefore, if we go to the blue box at the bottom of the screen, if a suffix begins with a consonant, a combining vowel, usually an O, is needed. So the rub is this. When you're looking at word building rule number 1 or 2, you can surmise it this way very easily. If my suffix begins with a consonant, I need to keep my extra Lego piece. I need the extra puzzle piece. I leave the combining vowel in place. If the suffix begins, with a vowel, you do not need to keep that combining vowel. You throw it away, you connect them right together, and you can make the word. So let's look at some examples here. Oh, pardon me. We jumped right into another word building rule. My apologies on that one. Let me recenter the screen a little bit. And I'm sorry for the futzing around here, but this thing came off of center. Just a moment. Sorry about the delay. Here we go. Word building rule number 3, which has nothing to do with the previous 2. It kind of contradicts them, as a matter of fact. In word building rule number 3, a combining form links a word root to another word root to form a compound word, even if the next root begins with a vowel. Okay, so is that confusing or not? Okay, I've often thought that was confusing, but if you work with me, I promise you, you'll get this. Combining form links a word root to another word root to form a compound word, even if the next root begins with a vowel. So below we see gastro, which I've told you means stomach, intestine, which means exactly that, intestines. We want to talk about a state where the stomach and the intestines are being affected at the same time. We combine them together. Even though intestinal starts with a vowel, we still retain the combining vowel. Every time we put these nouns together, we're going to keep that combining vowel, no matter if the second word starts with a consonant or a vowel. So word building rules 1 and 2 are about attaching suffixes. Word building rule number 3 is specifically about attaching nouns together. So gastrointestinal, although intestine starts with an I, we still keep the combining vowel for gastro. We get the word gastrointestinal. Same with posterior-anterior. We see here we're combining 2 combining forms, posterior-antero. Antero starts with an A, but according to this rule, we're going to retain that combining vowel nevertheless to connect these words together to make them easier to pronounce. Now you have a term that means posterior-anterior, meaning from back to front. And here you can kind of look at these. I'm going to readjust the screen here. Give me just a moment. Shift it off for one slide. You can take a look at these and see kind of how they go together and play with the idea. It's giving you not the combining form, but the word root, and they're offering you a suffix. And then you can see here on the far right, they're showing you when you do and do not need to have that combining vowel. For example, gastroscope, you need it. Tonsillitis, you do not. Neurology, you need it. And in leukemia, you do not. Once again, look at the suffixes. What's the first letter in the suffix? That will determine if you need to keep that combining vowel. My time is up for this segment. I'm going to hit pause. I'm going to be back with you in a second, and we're going to continue with word building and learning some more information. Just one moment. I'll be right back.